All right, let's go ahead and get started with day 10, officially day 10. I can't say by now that we kept the chain, right? But it's technically day 10 in the problem solving series, right? Um, it's not a continuation, but it is definitely a sequence, right? So for today, um, I'm solving problems here in arrays and hashing, part of decode roadmap. Um, I throw a couple of grind 72 there too, um, or grind 75, not 72. Um, I like the tool of calculating things, but that's another topic. But for today, arrays and hashing, and we have encode and decode strings. This problem. I try to open it here in LeetCode. I'm not subscribed to LeetCode Premium yet. I think it's at some point in the process, as you get closer to interviews, I think it's important to have it, beneficial if you have the means for it. For now, I think we can solve a bunch of these problems without having it. Now, there's a workaround for problems like this, and it's funny because it's the Chinese version. It's called LeetCode, and I literally just found out looking for this problem, but you can find all problems on LeetCode from LeetCode here in LeetCode, and it's the same problem, pretty much the same description and parameters and everything else. So we're gonna attempt it here. I had to give my soul away though to these people because it's a junk email, by the way, so don't try to spam it. But yeah, phone number and everything in order to log in this thing. It's so crazy. It looks so much like TikTok, but that's another topic. We're gonna try to solve this problem, and let's go ahead and start. It says design an algorithm to encode a list of strings to a string. The encoded string is then sent over the network and is decoded back to the original list of strings. Please implement encode and decode, the functions that are here. It says because the string may contain any of the 256 legal ASCII or ASCII or ASCII characters, your algorithm must be able to handle any character that may appear. Do not rely on any libraries. The purpose of this problem is to implement the encode and decode algorithms on your own, okay? And that's awesome that they specify that here. I'm not sure if that's the same case here. I can't read it, but if that's the case, that's pretty cool because that way you know you're not going to be calling some Python magic on your code, but that's pretty cool. Then we have examples here, input and output, and they look the same pretty much, but it's because that's what we get as an input. Then we have to convert that into what it says here, into a string, right? Into an encoded string. So it says here one possible encode method is like this, right? So we get this input, we encode it like this, and then once we apply the decode function, it should come out like the original one, right? So it's basically, I don't know if it falls into the category or encryption and decryption or decryption. But it's pretty much that, right? You get a message, you transform that message into something completely different. Not too different in this case, but yeah. And then from there you go ahead and parse that back again into the original string or message. Same thing here, and they just use a different encoding method saying we say two dots and that. So yeah, so here a couple characters, like the semicolon, it's playing a role of, so we see here we have the colon and then semicolon. So semicolon is acting as a possible delimiter, and we're going to talk about that now. For that, we're going to go ahead and bring our little whiteboard to kind of go through the concept before we go to anything else. Try to understand the problem. I think I'm going to just copy an input from here so we can have a better example here instead of me try to. Let's go ahead and get this in a proper size. So yeah, this is going to be the input string. Wonder if I can change some of this to a more, there we go. That's more readable, I believe. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So we get this as an input. We have to encode it into a string. That's the first function. So we got multiple strings in a list or array, right? And we have to convert that into a single string and then make sure we decode that back into this main string. So we are playing with different options here because we're manipulating a string inside of an array. So we can think about options we have. In an array, we have access to all elements. We can do item lookup in constant time, so that is good in case we need to search something inside here, right? Now, since the output has to be another array, right? So we know that while we are processing this right here, it's going to be a string. We're going to be processing that string. We have to somehow convert it back into a array, and I'm trying to get this going right here. So we get an array of strings, we convert it into one strings, and then we send it back as the original one, right? And let's just do here original, or let's see what's going on here. Original, hope it's readable. So that's basically the process, right? We know we have 3 different steps. We're trying to break things down and understand first our input and output. That way we can determine an approach. Now, there are multiple ways we can approach this, right? One way could be using chunks or word chunks, right? This is very common, I believe, in large language models, a lot of AI right now, but we grab all the data we have here, all the strings, and basically determine the size of chunks. And let's say the size of the chunks is going to be 4. And then we create some sort of, let's say, metadata section, right? Where we're going to read from that metadata, and it could be, just for the sake of the example, let's say it's going to be an array, but that's just going to contain the information of the size of each chunk, right? So if we say, for instance, in the first word, we said, we have our chunks are going to be by 4. We know we have here 4 letters. So our first chunk is going to have 4 letters, and that's what we store here. So in this case, it's going to be, and imagine this is an array. In this case, it's going to be at position 1. We're going to have 4 chunks, and so forth. We do with the other ones. 4 letters, we have 4 chunks, and so on, right? So when we hit 3 here, there's a problem, right? Because we determined that the size of our chunks is going to be 4, and so far we have 3 strings that are the length 4. But what happened when we hit 3? So, well, in this case, and let's say this is the last case here, we have to have some sort of mechanism to add some padding to the string, right? Based on the size of our chunks. So we have 3 here, and we add 3, and we know that since the size of our chunks is 4, we have to add to that last string 1 padding. And I'm not going to dip into this. It sounds like I am, but really not. I'm just trying to kind of go over it, explaining it, because I had to kind of study it a little bit. But it's very interesting because this is an introduction to large language models. The difference is that we have very large data sets, right? We have, sentences, whatever the size of that database where we're training our models, all sorts of documents from the internet and, papers and books and whatever. And those are large sets of text, right? In this case, we're dealing with words. So, and they're, so to speak, very short words, right? So the whole point of using chunks, it's not going to work for our approach to solve this. Or it can work, it's just more complicated. And for the sake of an interview, unless we're applying for something that's very specific towards, machine learning or AI, we don't need to go with this approach. There's a simpler one, and that's the one we can definitely go over. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, or I can keep that part. I'm just going to get rid of this. And we're going to go and explore the approach we're going to be using. And the approach we're going to be using is we're going to prefix the length of the string. And what I mean by that is kind of similar to what we were talking earlier, but it's not going to be on a metadata. It's going to be in the same string, right? So how do we do that, right? We're not going to have to create a separate data structure to store that information. We're going to do it in the same string. So how do we do that? Well, a way to do this, and I think it's a better example, is if I grab this. I'm just going to copy these again. If I can. Yeah, perfect. Here we go. The mic sometimes get on my way to the keyboard, and that's what I have to look down. But anyways, I'm going to make the example here, but we can prefix the length of the string and then read back from it. And what I mean by that is we have the first word here that is lint, right? And the length of that word, if we go to Python and get the length of that word, or any other program, right? Or any other programming language, it's going to be equal to 4, right? The length of that word is equal to 4. So what happened here is that we know that this word is equal to 4. So what we do, we append the prefix. We use the same string as a way to store this information. So we can grab that string, right, that it's inside of an array at position 1, and this is why working inside the array with the strings, it's beneficial, because we can just say, hey, at position 1 or 0, index 0, position 1, obviously, we're going to go ahead and grab that word that it's the length of, that is length 4, and prepend that 4 to the string. But what happened is that we cannot say, for instance, for lint. Why? Well, because we're never, at the moment of reading this word, this is a 4 and this is the word lint, which is the first word here. At the moment of reading this, we don't know, since we can use ASCII characters, right? We don't know when to determine when this is going to be the word or when this is going to be if 4 is part of the string or if 4 is not part of the string, right? And that's where we need something called a delimiter that I think I mentioned earlier. So the delimiter, what the delimiter is going to do here is basically, as the name says, set a limit between the length of the string and the word. We can pick here any delimiter, and I think that's pretty clear. But in my case, I'm gonna go with the most common one. It's a colon. So if I prepend a colon and the length of the string in front of that word, by the time I'm decoding the string, right? This is where the encoding happens here. Encode, and just give me some grace here with the space of these words. And this is where the decode happens. So when we are encoding, decode, let's try to write that right. But anyways, when the encoding is happening, we're gonna set a delimiter, and we're also going to determine the length of that word, because when we're reading back from it, what we can say is let's see here if I can go ahead and jump here and kind of change this. Yeah, so transforming this word into an example, this word would look like this: 4 colon lint, right? Because this is the length of the word, this is the delimiter we set, and this is the word. But what happened is that the same thing's going to happen for this, because the length of this next word here, code, it's also 4. So we set the 4 and the delimiter. Same thing for this one, because it's length 4. And for the last one, as we saw earlier for a different example, this is 3. But we have the delimiter, right? So this is how a string would look. Now what happened is that this is going to be all one string, because that is what the problem states, right? So we take the columns from here, we take that column from there, and everything's going to look kind of like crumpled up all together. But we're going to have the information that we need, which is, that's the whole string. That's how that string would look after we encode it with this approach. So we have the length, delimiter, the length of the word, another delimiter, another length, another delimiter, and so forth, right? So that's the encoding process. I'm going to move it up here so it makes more sense, at least visually. This is where we encode this string. So we get this string, we encode it, it looks like this. Now we have the information we need. Notice how we are not creating any extra data structure. We're working with the same string we get, right? Or we're kind of converting, not kind of, but we're totally converting this into one, but we're not creating anything different. We could say that we're creating a new array, a new string, but that string is coming from the same data structure. So technically we are creating a new data structure, I could say, because not a data structure. Technically we are creating something new, not a data structure. That's something that's got to be clear, because now I'm gonna even confuse myself. But yeah, that's how we're gonna process that string. And for this, again, there are many different approaches you can go by, but I think this is the most straightforward, right? But what happened is, this is the easy part. How we decode that now? How we take the whole string and send it back to the original string. We have to do a lot of reading. But what happened is that a lot of the reading we have to do is, instead of by string here, so we were reading up here word by word, right? We were inside this array and we were saying, you know, position 1, position 2. We took word by word, index by index in the array. Now we have to go character by character. And this is where I think personally it gets really intuitive and it got interesting for me while I was like trying to understand the problem. Is that what do we do when we want to keep track of characters? And this is a pretty cool thing. We use pointers, right? Because we could iterate over this string here. Sorry. We could iterate over this, but we have to keep track of the length of that word and the delimiter of that word. So the best way to do that is using pointers. And using pointers is a good pattern to solve programming problems. And that's the whole reason we're here, right? If I'm not mistaken, well, this is into the category of arrays and hashing, not into the 2 pointers here. We'll go there later. But I believe you can observe this problem as I gotta go back to, here we go. We can observe this problem as 2 pointers. And this is for the people that know how to solve this problem, for the people that don't. For the people that don't know how to solve the problem, which is the people that I would probably be talking to, because also myself, we're going to go through this string, and I'm just going to put it right here. We're going to go to the decode process, and, you know, I hope you understand. Maybe if I number these things, will be more understandable. This is step 1. Can we make that a little bigger? Yeah, this is step 1, where we start the process with the input. Step 2 is, so we're reading the input. We could say that that this is actually step 1, because the first thing we do is to encode and decode. But let's say the first thing is to get valid input, right? And in a case where this would matter, right? So we get a valid input. That's the second one. Then we get to encode, and then we get to decode. I'm just trying to make it a little more explicit. 1, 2, and 3. I know the numbers are smaller, but if we zoom in, they're there. So now we get this string, right? We encode it, and now we have to go through every character in this string, get the length of that string, and process the whole string now. Get the length, see where that string ends, get that word out of there with the new information we have, which is the length of that word. And yeah, I think that's pretty much that part, right? We're decoding, we have the length, we go from the length here and get the delimiter, and then get the word. Now, the pointers. So I already created one here. I'm gonna go ahead and create another one, kind of. Let's go ahead and use a different color just for the sake of making this more visually appealing. We're gonna just have a little pointer here. And what we're gonna do, well, we have to find a couple things. First, we have to find, okay, I guess I gotta group these things here. So we have to find the beginning of the string and grab the length. So we start here with our first pointer, and we start this pointer here also because we want to iterate from here to find the delimiter, which would be this one. Let's switch pointers because I think the right would be better. I know it doesn't matter, but not to try to throw anyone off there. But we start here with both pointers at position 0 of our whole array. We iterate until we hit the delimiter. Once we hit the delimiter, what do we have in this range here from the first pointer to the second pointer? We have the length of the following string we have to find. So what do we say? So, well, if now we have the length of the string, we have the length. So what do we do from there? So, well, with the length, we can say, okay, well, from the delimiter, from this delimiter right here towards the length, so from here plus the length, which is 4, what do we get? We get the whole word. So what do we do? The delimiter, it's going to be set here, plus 1. We could do plus 1, right? We're moving pointers. And if you're watching this and you don't know this, trust me, I'm learning too. This is a process new for me. I'm explaining as I go. But pointers, and we're gonna see it in code, are very, very useful. Necessary for very necessary, crucial, I would say, for computer science programming. But for the sake of this problem, right, we are standing at the delimiter that we found. This pointer was here, told us the length. Now we have the length. The length of the array we know is 4. Now what do we say? Well, we say, well, we need to count the word. We have the length. Now we know that the next word we got to find its length 4. So what do? Well, we said, hey, you're the starting point. Come over here where the delimiter is, and let me go ahead and count from you. Okay, if I get a hold of that. And let me go ahead, and I'm just going to use this, right? Let's do it like this. They're both standing at the delimiter. Starting point is blue. Ending point is red. So we just told red, hey, now we have the length. We grabbed the length from the word. Let's go ahead and start finding the word. Okay, well, just stand right here while I go 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces down. And what do we have? We have our word. So in that range that we just went through is our word. Now, this is not inclusive. Right here, we don't need that delimiter. We just need the word. So we could say, you know, depending the language, but in Python, we could say the starting point plus 1, and it's going to totally go ahead and move that pointer to here. And we know the ending word is going to be the length plus 4. Even if we count from here, we can say 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is not inclusive, so what do we have? We have the whole word. And what do? Well, we know we need an array, right? Because we set it here, and they're also expecting an array because we have to output the original array, or the original string combination, right? So we know we need an array, so we're going to have an array sitting here just waiting for us to find all these words to send it back to that array, right? And that way we're going to start constructing our original array, right? So we have the first word. We go ahead and send the first word over here, and let's see if I can kind of play with this. I'm going to open this array a little more, and we're going to go ahead and send the word lint into our array because we found it. What's next? Well, we have to go a couple 4 more, right? So what happens now? How do we update our pointers? Let me delete this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this too. Doesn't really add a lot to it. So what do we do now? Well, we know that our end pointer is at the end of our word, right? And our array or starting pointer is at the beginning of the word. So what do? Well, we say, hey, starting point, go ahead and go to the end of the word plus 1, because based on the encoding we did, that's where the next length of the word should be, right? We know this is going to be the same always, so because we encoded that way. So we just update our starting pointer and say, hey, go all the way to the end. We know where the end is because we're pointing it right here. We're holding that spot just to tell this pointer, go ahead and go 1 over. And what do? Well, with this guy, started over here next to this guy, right? So he's gonna go right there. They're both at the starting point, and we do the same thing again, and that is how this algorithm is going to work. We start at the start of the next one. We grab the length, right? Because this guy is gonna find the delimiter, the ending point, and now we know this word's also 4. So what do? We say, okay, you stay there. I'm going to go ahead and grab the delimiter, and you go all the way down 4 spaces that we already know, and go ahead and grab this word again. And again, the way we manipulate this pointer is going to be plus 1, because we're going to set it to the delimiter, and plus 1 it's going to be the initial, the first letter of our word, and this guy's going to be to the end. So what do again? We go ahead and send our word up there. And yeah, as you can see, that's how we are going to be deconstructing our string and send it back to the array. So I think this is clear for now. A lot of whiteboard time, but definitely necessary, at least for me to understand the problem too. I hope it was clear on the other side. And I don't know, don't be shy. If you have questions, please ask me. I'm here to learn too. If you have something to teach me, I'm totally open for that. That's the whole purpose of these, right? Always try to learn as much as we can. Let's go ahead and jump into LeetCode. No, LeetCode, no, but LeetCode, which is the Chinese version we found to solve premium problems until I subscribe. I'll definitely end up subscribing once I get closer to interview level. For now, I'll keep practicing medium problems and see how far I get. So we know how we're going to proceed with this. We know the encoding. What do we say? Well, for the encoding, we are going to have an encoded array, right? This is going to be the whole array where we're going to send our strings. So we're going to iterate now over that list of strings, as we said. So for every string in strings, right? That is our list of strings. We're going to say, hey, go ahead and encode it. So let's see here. We're going to have that first string. So we could say, we could add things to it, and we say, hey, encode it is going to be plus equal, because we're going to keep adding to that string. What do we need? We need the length. That is the first thing in our list, right? We need the length. So we're going to create this string here. What is it? The first thing we need is the length. So we're going to say, hey, the length of the string. So we're going to say the length of these string. So the length of that string at position S. But what happened here is that we need to, this is a number, so we cannot append to different data types, right? We're not appending a 4 to a string unless it's previously converted into a string. So we're going to convert that into a string this way, casting it, and say, hey, go ahead and append the length of that word into the string plus what? So we also need the delimiter. What do we say that we're going to use for the delimiter? In our case, it's going to be a colon, right? Since we have here. So we have the length of the string, and then we have the colon that it's right here, right? So that colon is just going to go ahead and be added here. What else do we need? Well, we need the string, right? And we're just creating an array. The reason we're using plus equal is because we're working on a new array. If we just do equal here, it's just gonna grab the word every time it goes for the string. It's gonna grab the first word, and it's gonna append it the right way. We haven't finished here, but then it's gonna end up with the last word. So we want to keep adding words to it. So we do plus equal, and here we finally add the string, right? The string we're iterating over. So first we grab the length of that particular string at that position, then we add the delimiter, and then we append the string. And at the end of that process, we should be done with all the words. We return the encoded string we found, right? Or we built. Now here's where things get tricky. We that's the easy part, right? We encoded our string with the parameters we said we would. Now what do we do? Well, a couple things. We know we're gonna need first to decode this string, so we're gonna create a decoded array because we have to return an array. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And what else did we say we were gonna need? We're also going to need pointers. I think I can do it this way. Decode it. I think I could say decode it, comma, start. and it's going to start positions here. So I'm just declaring two different things here. I'm saying the decoded, it's going to be equal to this array, and the starting point, which is our first pointer, is going to be equal to 0. 0 is always going to be the index of the initial value we're looking for. What do we do now? Well, we have to iterate over our characters. But what happened is we have to find the delimiter. So first, we need to say, hey, while the starting point is in bounds, or inside the string we're looking for, so we're saying here, well, this pointer that starts at 0 is less than the length of the string. It's in bounds with the string, because we don't wanna go past this string, right? If this is our starting pointer and we're gonna start right here, we need to find the delimiter. So the first thing we say, hey, as long as this doesn't go all the way to here, we're good, right? So while this starting point hasn't finished with the last word, let's go ahead and find the delimiter. So what is the delimiter we said earlier? Well, delimiter, it's also a pointer. It's going to be the end pointer. So we said, well, that is in bounds and is going to be equal to the starting point. We said they're both going to start at the same position, right? Right here. Because we're going to start scanning or parsing this towards, the delimiter. So what do we do then? We say, they're both at the same position. Now, what do we need? Well, we need to say here also, we're working with pointers. We want to keep pointers in bounds. So we say while, the end pointer, it's not equal to our delimiter. So let's get that right, because it's a while loop. We got to be careful with that. So we say, well, this pointer here, it's not equal to this. What do we do then? Oh, well, we keep looking, right? So we say, well, the end pointer, it's not equal to the delimiter. We keep increasing our end pointer plus equal 1. So we keep saying, hey, go ahead and go 1 until you find it. Let's say our word would be, and I don't want to create another crazy example here, but let's say we have 2 digits, maybe we're going to have a point where we have a word that is going to be the length 10, right? Well, instead of going 1 space, that is pretty obvious, we're going to have to go another one. So while we don't hit this point right here, or delimiter, we're going to keep increasing it. Now, once we hit it, what do we have? Well, what do we say if let me get this back to this. They both started here, but now the pointer found the delimiter. What do we have in between these 2 pointers? We have the length, which is 4, right? In this case. So we said, hey, let's go ahead and grab the length of that string that's going to be equal to it's going to be equal to, give me a second here. Well, keep increasing. So it's going to be equal to that. Okay, it's going to be equal to the string that we're iterating over at position what? Start to finish, to the end. And I see an error here. There's an error in this code, and it's we're using a reserved keyword here. String comes up in red here because it's a reserved Python keyword. That's how, same thing here. See how they highlight all together? This is how we cast other strings. So I think that's gonna output an error if I keep it like that. I think I almost see here how the parameter is not or the argument. I'm confusing now. I shouldn't be confused by arguments and parameters. I think this is the argument. Anyway, so I gotta do a little review on that, but I think this is wrong right here. I think this is not going to work because that's a reserved Python keyword, okay? And I'm going to allow me. Well, I'm gonna try to solve it like that. I just know that that's not gonna work because I'm saying the length of the string here, and that's a reserved keyword. So I'm gonna go ahead and change that to s, which is gonna be just the parameter we're looking for. Excuse me. And it's the same. It's a string, right? So that makes more sense here now, because I don't have a reserved keyword here saying, you know, string from start to end. That doesn't make any sense, at least at the level I'm at right now. If I'm wrong, please enlighten me. But that's the length, okay? So let's go back to the problem. We have the length now because we have the 2 pointers basically holding what's inside of that, and that's the length. So let's go back to here. What do we do now? Well, we have the length, and now we could say let's see here. Let me see how this looks. So now we have the length, right? So what do we say? Well, now we can say, well, now that I have the length, I'm gonna move this guy to the delimiter because I want to get a hold of the word now. So I'm gonna move this guy to the delimiter, and I'm gonna move the delimiter length down to grab the word, and this looks like this in code. Well, I'm gonna say, well, now that I have the length, the starting pointer should be equal to what? Well, to the end pointer, because the end pointer is sitting right at the delimiter right here. This is the initial position. So I'm gonna say, hey, you sit here, and you are gonna go all the way down to start equal to n, and n is going to be equal to let me go ahead and see it here. I know I gotta add the length here. So n is going to be equal to start plus length, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is, because starting point, it's going to be where start is, which is the initial. So this is the beginning of the word, and it's going to be at the starting position. So start plus the length, right? So where that pointer is going to go is, well, if this guy's sitting right here, I'm going to go 4 spaces down and grab the end of the keyword. And that is and that's the whole, I'm grabbing right there in these two, the whole word. So now what I do is, well, I have the first word technically, so I can say, hey, let me go ahead and append that to my list, because I found indeed the first word. So where is the first word? So it's going to be sitting at that string from the start to the end, right? And we're just slicing the string with the information that we have. So here we're just saying, you know, go ahead and append to our array that string from the starting point, which is sitting at n, which is sitting at the delimiter, plus n, which is sitting at the starting point, which is at the beginning, plus 4 spaces, because we have the length. That's what we get the length for. So we do that, and what we do next? Well, now we have to move our pointer. Now we have here, what do we have? We have the length. We found the delimiter first, right? In between the delimiter, we have the length, and then we have the whole word here, and now we append that word. So what do? We need to continue the process because we have to go back to the start. We have a while loop here. So how are we going to end that while loop? Well, the way to do that is we're going to go ahead and set start to the end again, because remember the end now is equal to the end of that word, right? So we're going to go ahead and set start to the end of that word plus 1. Why? Because we need to, the end of the word is t right here in this case, but we need the start to be equal to what? The beginning of the next section. And let's go ahead and get rid of this one, and that's where we at right now in this case, right? This one is sitting in that word back here. We're gonna update it now, but this one went equal to n plus 1 because we want to grab the length of the other word. And then we said, well, the n now could be, go ahead and be equal to the starting point again, right? Because that's what n was up here. And once that's done, we can say once that's done, we started at the first word, we can go ahead and return our decoded array, because we're going to be able to, it's a while loop, it's going to run until find all the words with all the lengths and all the delimiters. So we can safely say, hey, once that's done, just go ahead and return the decoded array, which is going to be equal to the initial array. And I think this should work. I think this should be our algorithm. I changed it this here. I hope that's fine. I'm gonna run it. I might be being ignorant right now, and I'm fine with that. But I think that was wrong. Okay, yeah, it says the evaluation might affect the resolution here, but not affect value from the code itself. Type. Okay, so yeah, so I'm having problem in the encoded, so I know it's not list in the sum of integer, slice is not string. So yeah, so what I'm doing here is the length of 4s. Okay, so I'm getting, yeah, I don't need to do that. I see the problem. I just need the length of, and also I gotta close this parenthesis here, but I just need the length of that particular string I'm iterating on. I don't need the length of the whole, the word it was going on, because I'm already iterating over it, right? So I think that should be it. So I'm saying is encoded plus equal the length plus this plus the string itself. That should work there. Time limit exceeded. You ran too much. Always expect the time complexity to have an infinite loop. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I see the problem. Plus equal 1 while I thought I had it. I thought it was that this hint your con ran too much ability might affect the results. Time complexity. See the, yeah, it says like the for loop, the while loop is running forever. When not equal to this, n plus equal to 1, length start from s to n, start n, move that pointer, start n plus 1. Maybe I don't need to move the pointer 1 up. N equal to start. Maybe start is equal to n, start plus 1. Okay, it's time for debugging. See, that happens too. So I'm just gonna do this. I'm not saying this is gonna be the solution, but I want to see if that's what. Okay, so I know my while loop is not cramping there. So I'm saying, well, the start is less than the length of that. String. Go ahead and set that same pointer while the end pointer is not equal to our delimiter that we set here. Go ahead and increase it until you find it. Then the length is in between that. Then go ahead and set the starting point to that. Then go ahead and set the end point to that plus the length. I'm not sure about this part right here. N equal the start plus the length. Yeah, I think that's fine. That should be fine. But let me test this code, right? So a way to debug this, we've seen it before. If you're being here with me, we go to this nice Python Tutor and play with the inputs and see how our codes behave. Where I'm at. Here we go. Yep. I don't want to think it's because I changed this, and I'm gonna leave that for later. But let's go ahead and check these here. Well, the spotlight. I need to go to this and this. Go ahead and paste this thing back. Wow. There we go. That's the only problem with stuff like this. That okay, it's working. That should be good. Let's go ahead and throw an input here, because that way we can so we know that link code, lit code. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can grab it from here since I already have it. Here we go. This is how our string's gonna look after we process it. After we process this string with our delimiter. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that in here with the function decode. Right? We get that's the string we have to decode, and if this works, it should give me the original string, right? Missing. Okay. Gotcha. This is not gonna work here. I gotta take the self keyword out. Now that should work. But yeah, no, I'm having a while loop going too long. I'm definitely having a while loop going too long. This thing was like, hey, we can't run your code for that long. So let's go into the start. Well, the start is less than the length. Go ahead and get the endpoint, both at the beginning position, while the end is not equal to that. Go ahead and go back up. It should have found it there. It's okay. That's where the error is, because it's running all the steps in the world. See, that's where a while loop is going crazy. So that's why I like to debug this thing this way, because now we know where the problem is exactly. We just saw in the backend. I'm not saying in an interview I'm gonna be able to do that. Now in a real world scenario, if I have to do it, well, that's how I'll find it. So, well, the n is not equal to the delimiter. And we said that that's the delimiter. I'm trying to see here. Well, the end pointer. Oh, I see where the problem is. We have to, so we're converting this string. We're converting the length into a string. The length here has to be an integer. This has to be an integer. And I'm not saying that's gonna solve the problem right now. But when we append here, the length of the string, where we were appending so I technically found another probably error that was part of. I'm not saying this is going to fix that problem, because I saw where the problem was up there before, but that was gonna definitely be the second problem. So I'm glad we went over that. Anyways, let's go back here, and I don't see where I'm doing something. I'm implementing something wrong here. I'm saying while this pointer at n is not equal to this. Oh, I think I'm missing a big part of this, and it's I'm not I should be looping through the I should be looping through the characters, right? While they start, so send the length, and while. Let me see here because yeah, I think I'm missing something. Um, I'm looping through numbers, so that's why it's never going to be equal to that. So why am I looping through numbers? While and add. Oh, see. While the character. This is what I'm missing. While okay, because we're iterating over the characters in our string. So while the character in our string, this is crucial here. I'm glad we found it, right? But while the character, because I was iterating over indexes, infinite indexes that I was never gonna find. Now this should work because I'm saying while the character at that position, and I was using the pointers here, I should have known, but I'm saying why the character at this position is not equal this, right? It in the whole string. I was missing the string initially here, right? So that should work now. Okay, so it says wrong answer, but now we don't have the infinite loop. So now we're going to debug another thing, right? Output data. So see, I'm missing something and then adding something. So see here the words, how it's coming with the delimiter. So the inner start plus the length. So start plus n. Start plus 1. Start equals n. I think it's here. I gotta do start plus n equal 1 and then plus that length. Let me see. That's gonna solve, what do we got? Nope, I'm not getting the whole number when I do that. I know it's the pointer. The pointer is going, is it start n equals start plus length plus 1? No. Let's see. Maybe it's here. I know I gotta move the pointer 1 over SNT4. No. I know I gotta move the pointer 1 over at some point. So I have the length. Now the start pointer goes to the end of that word. And that's fine. That's good. The end goes to the start, which is at the end. I think it's start plus 1. No, that doesn't make sense because I'm going over 2 now. Output. So I got the whole word, but now I don't have the. I'm also grabbing the delimiter. So it's something with the pointer that I know I'm definitely. If I go to the start to the length plus 1, no, because now I did that already. I'm going over 1. Output data. It's where I'm starting. It's my starting n plus 1. It's my starting delimiter. That is not working. So start equals n. It's the length plus 1. No, I don't think so. No, because now here, see the output here, I'm getting that. So that's right. Start equals the end pointer. And this is when I have the length. So now I have the length up. So this is literally where I'm at. So the starting pointer should be equal to the end pointer plus 1. Should be equal to the end pointer plus 1. And then the end pointer is going to be equal to the start, which is this right here, plus 4. I think it's going 1 over when I do that. No, there it is. That's it. It was the starting. Found it. Now we gotta submit it and see if it works. But we found the pointer. See. Let's go ahead and submit. And ta-da! We got our first solution. Let's get that confetti going. Yes, sir. That is our first solution for encode, by the way. Never ever solved anything in encode, but we went through the whole algorithm and it worked. And yeah, that's the whole process of these problem solving. We could say that we can find a more optimal solution, but this kind of problem, it is a medium problem. I studied this problem, before I solved it. Because that's at the end, that's how you're gonna learn. And I've said this multiple times in my previous videos, but if it's your first video, the first video you watch, the only way you learn something, it's through studying it, because you can't come up with something you don't know. I mean, you could, right? But you gotta be a genius. And at least me, and if you're watching this, you might be a genius in something else, but not coding. So you're gonna definitely have to go through multiple iterations before you arrive to a solid conclusion in code. So yeah, that's it. That's a good approach. We can go ahead and come here and mark these as completed. And for tomorrow, we should have product of an array except self. Let me make sure this is on a pro or a premium problem. No, it's not. It's a medium one, and that's the next one. Alrighty, I think that's it for today, you guys. Thanks a lot for being here. If you made it to this part of the video, if you made it to this part of the video, go ahead and put an alien emoji in the comments, and I'll just know you watched the video till here. Just do it. Don't ask me why, just do it. Alright, thanks a lot. I'll see you guys later.